Amul butter, parachute oil, dairy milk. Now you guys might be wondering, I clicked on the Classic 650 video and what is this guy doing with all these products? You see, the common trait between all these products is that they have become the identity of their brands. And when it comes to Royal Enfield, its identity is the Classic 350, and what we are riding today is the new Classic 650. For any brand to tinker with its halo product is a difficult task, but Royal Enfield has done that. Here is the new Classic 650, and the key question is it a good upgrade for a Classic 350 owner or not? One of the key reasons for the success of the Classic 350 was its old school styling packaged well with vibrant colors. As you can see, the Classic 650 carries forward the same design language, and there is no surprise over there. The headlight nacelle is similar to the Classic 350, so is the fork cover. The mudguard shape is similar, and when you move forward, even the fuel tank profile is similar to the Classic 350, and so is the rear mudguard and the iconic pea shooter. So in terms of visual elements, the Classic 650 carries on the design elements of the Classic 350, but in terms of proportions, this is a big motorcycle, has that vibe of a 650cc motorcycle going for it. So the proportions of this bike is much bigger than the Classic 350. So yes, the design elements of the Classic 650 is similar to the 350, but I think the design elements doesn't work well cohesively. For example, the gap between the mudguard and the rear tire looks a bit off, and overall proportions of this motorcycle just looks like an extended version of the Classic 350. The Classic 350 looked much more compact in that sense. Now that's a personal opinion. What's your take on the styling of the Classic 650? Do let us know in the comments. By now, we are very familiar with the Classic 650's twin-cylinder engine because we have ridden this motorcycle engine for a very long time and across very different motorcycles. So how does it fit on the Classic 650? The first thing that you notice is the extra heft of the motorcycle. It doesn't shoot off the line, say like an Interceptor 650, but then again, did you actually buy a Classic 650 for that performance? In that regard of being a chill motorcycle, it does its job very well. The highlight of the engine still remains that wave of torque, which means you can ride this motorcycle in third gear, fourth gear. There is no chugging. It just keeps on cruising. However, I should mention the ride that we did today in Kannur. The roads were very sharp and twisty. We hardly got any straight. So how is the straight line performance of this motorcycle? How is the stability of this motorcycle is something that we will be addressing in a road test video. But in terms of the engine nature, how it works on the Classic 650 on the mountain roads, it felt good. The gearbox, again, a very slick 6-speed gearbox. The shifts are very nice. However, the clutch action is heavy. I think one of the reasons is that chunky lever which robs you of the feel. So maybe in city traffic, because of the heft and because of the heavy clutch, the Classic 650 wouldn't be a very easy motorcycle to ride. However, again, as I mentioned before, we'll have to wait for a thorough road test to comment on the highway performance and the city performance. So how's the ergonomics of the new Classic 650? First up is the seat height. The seat height is pretty low at 800 mm. I am 5 feet 10 tall, weigh around 100 kg. I can easily flat foot. But for shorter riders, the width of the motorcycle can be a bit of concern. Now moving on to the riding posture, the handlebar is a bit different on the Classic 650. It is straight at the center, but then it kind of curves back towards the rider. The foot peg position is center set, and as you can see, the riding posture is very upright. However, I would have preferred a flatter handlebar because this curve back handlebar kind of makes me feel a bit uncomfortable over a long journey. Maybe the flatter handlebar would have been a better choice as we have seen on the Classic 350. One more advantage of the center set foot peg is that when you're riding through city traffic, your shin will not hit the foot peg, which is the case with the Interceptor, and it is quite painful. Another thing for the pillion rider, although it doesn't have a pillion seat over here, you can see the foot peg for the pillion rider is now much more lower compared to the Interceptor 650 because this is a straight pipe that has a raked exhaust muffler. So in terms of space for the pillion rider, this will be more comfortable. What won't be comfortable is the weight of the motorcycle. The Classic 650 is the heaviest Royal Enfield bike out there, 243 kgs. And when you want to move the bike around in parking, yeah, it will take some effort. So one of the key questions with the new Classic 650 is how is the ride quality of the bike? The front suspension works fine, but the rear suspension doesn't. When you're going over speed breakers or undulations, you feel each and every jolt on your back. And the reason for this is just not the suspension, it's the travel of the suspension, which is very low and kind of it bottoms out the suspension. Yes, in comparison to the Super Meteor, the ride quality is better, and the reasoning for that is the way you sit on the motorcycle, because you're more upright. On the Super Meteor, more laid back, so all the hits go to your tailbone. So in terms of ride quality, yes, it is better than the Super Meteor, but overall ride quality still remains stiff. The frame is shared with the Shotgun 650, and the first thing you notice is the bigger front wheel, and you have to get used to it. The steering isn't as sharp as the Interceptor or even the Shotgun, but once you get a hang of the front end, the Classic 650 will surprise you with its handling dynamics. However, the real test of the bike will be in city traffic, as the weight of the motorcycle might make a difference, although taking a U-turn wasn't very difficult. The Classic 650 is the first RE bike to get the brand logo on the caliper, and the braking performance is decent. The bite is there on the front wheel, but the feel through the lever is low. The rear brake, on the other hand, feels a bit too sharp, and even the ABS steps in a bit late. So what's our take on the new Classic 650? Well, I cannot give you a definite answer because we've been riding this motorcycle around the mountain roads, and the real test of this motorcycle is in the city and out on the open highways. Having said that, Royal Enfield has got the basics right with this motorcycle. I think the engine is really good. The styling, although it is not as proportionate as the Classic 350, in my opinion, I think for most of the buyers, the styling is on point, and even the dynamics is decent. But what will really seal the deal for a lot of buyers will be the pricing of the bike. The Classic 650 is priced between 3.37 lakh and goes up to 3.50 lakh ex-showroom, and I think the pricing is spot on because now it sits in between the Interceptor and the Shotgun. So I think a lot of Interceptor buyers might shift to the Classic 650 because in terms of ergonomics, it's better. The rider seat is better, the pillion seat is more comfortable, and it just looks more bigger in size compared to the Interceptor. So maybe a lot of Interceptor owners might shift to the Classic 650. So overall, as a motorcycle, Royal Enfield has done a good job. And the key question for the Classic 350 owner, is it a good upgrade? Well, it doesn't have the same charm of the Classic 350. I think it's a very unique motorcycle in that sense, and it comes down to the heft of this motorcycle because this feels very heavy. The Classic 350, although it's also a heavy motorcycle, doesn't feel its weight. But if you wanted to upgrade from a Classic 350, I think the Classic 650 does make a lot of sense. And in terms of competition, there's only the BSA Gold Star. So how does the Classic 650 compare to the Gold Star 650? Well, that's a story for some other video. But for now, the Classic 650 does look promising.